Good morning. Welcome to episode 125 of the Driller Newscast, a weekly update on the news and stories impacting the construction, drilling, geothermal, and groundwater industry. I'm your host, Brock Yordy, and this week in the news, we're going to start in space, looking down at Texas as we see places in West Texas limiting water to residents amongst fear of wells running dry. NASA and the GRACE program are looking at reservoirs and groundwater around the world. And we can see that in two pieces that they just released on reservoir data for the Rio Grande on Texas-Mexico border, and then again with Lake Powell, Lake Mead, and the Colorado River. For our feature this week, let's talk the conferences you need to be attending in September and October with a great discussion with Christine Hoffer, Executive Director of New York Geothermal Drilling Association. But before we jump into all this great news, who's your competent person on site? Let's talk some safety. For this week in safety, OSHA is under fire. We talk about this. Are we putting our employees in the line of fire? As we see new guidelines come out and all of these pieces, and we talk about executive branch agencies being overreaching and that we should be capable of making the rules because we have our employees' best interest. But I want you to think about that. It's 22 men died by end of June 2022, and another 18 died by the end of the year, 40 total in trench collapse. We look at heat exhaustion situations. It all falls back to the competent person on site. And who is that competent person? OSHA uses the term competent person many times in standards and documents. An OSHA competent person is defined as one who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in the surroundings or working conditions, which are unsanitary, hazardous, or dangerous to employees, and who has the authority to take prompt corrective measure to eliminate them. We can find that in the OSHA book that we should all have in our company in 29 CFR 1926, period 32F. When it comes into training, it says, by the way of training and or experience, a competent person is a knowledgeable individual of the applications and standards and is capable of identifying workplace hazards relating to specific operations and has the authority to correct them. What does this mean? As we start writing comments back about the OSHA heat rules or lightning safety or extreme weather or falls, electrocution, struck by, caught in betweens, mental health, this is what it means. No course creates a competent person. I'll state that again. No course. Just because I have an OSHA 30 or a 10 or I become an authorized trainer it makes you more educated and knowledgeable. But as we jump into the drilling industry, I want you to think about those standards. And a knowledgeable person, that competent person in requirements, comes from experience, comes from understanding our standard operating procedures, understands job safety analysis and risk assessments, understands the hazards, understands how to mitigate risk and protect our employees. And at the end of the day, as we dive deep into this for OSHA, a company deems who's a competent person. Has nothing to do with the certificate. So as we hire safety professionals and we have them out there helping us mitigate risk, and you say, oh, you got the book and the clipboards and now you must know more. No. As a company, we have put our trust in that authorized person to be the competent person. as we get into derricks and masts and rigging, scaffolding, falls, confined spaces, trenches, silica, electricity, arc flash. It's about the knowledgeable individual that we put into the place of being that competent person with the authority of the entire team to understand what the predictable risks are, what the hazards are, what deems an unsanitary condition. We should all have the ability to say stop. We should all have the ability to come together and have a discussion when there are major hazards on site. But at the end of the day, as you go in and you start looking at these discussions in OSHA, and there's many letters that OSHA has responded to about what deems a person a competent person to do that. Yes, more training is important. Knowledge is important. Standard operating procedures and standard safety policies are important. But at the end of the day, it's the trust the company has put into the individual and deeming them the competent person. And if you end up being that competent person on site from your safety knowledge, from your industry knowledge, from everything that has built you into the great professional you are today, understand you put an individual in a trench and it collapses, you are just as liable. And did you do your trench inspection? Did we have the right means of egress? Was it sloped? Was it shored? Was it benched? As we have that person open that electrical box, do we have the right arc flash gear? As we have somebody decide to climb beyond 5 feet, do they have the right fall protection? Who is the competent person? Yes, we train our people to be safety smart, to have an OSHA 10, to have an OSHA 30, to have our HAZWOMPer, whatever we need. But at the end of the day, one person on site has the ultimate authority. And that authority has to be trusted, respected, and understand it wasn't designated by OSHA. It's designated by you, the owner, the senior leadership, the shareholders. And that's what I want you to think about as we make comments on you should know better when you need water when the site is too hot. Or why would we let him climb that mast without fall protection? Who's the competent person on site? Go out, be safe. For this week in the news, it's a lot of conflicting data out there right now about reservoirs being beyond capacity, water releases, that we are fully out of this drought, that we have the precipitation, the storms. We just saw snowfall in the Sierras in August, which is a great gift. But let's get grounded on this. And to get grounded, we're going to jump in a space shuttle and head to space. Because at the end of July and August, NASA released reports from their GRACE satellite program, which is in conjunction with the German government. We're all working together to monitor water, glaciers, groundwater, surface water around the world. And in mid-July, it was evaluated that the Amistad Reservoir, which is in the Rio Grande, everybody, between Texas and Mexico, and has a joint compact to keep water in there. We're having big time issues, right? And they released data that showed that it was at the all-time record low of 1,048 feet. 2 years ago, they had said it hit an all-time record low. And I want you to think about the end of August and the excessive heat that Texas and the South has experienced. And in reality, we shut jobs down in Chicago last week due to excessive heat. So the Midwest and the Northeast, we saw the same thing. And Texas and Mexico had been experiencing these heat domes. Mexico City is nearly at water rationing right now for their 22 million residents. So we see that impact that's happening that the GRACE program was able to show us. And then just last week, NASA reported Lake Powell and Lake Mead images and took a look over the last 6 years of the GRACE research and combined that with the last several decades to show operating levels, which, we've just had big discussions about the Bureau of Reclamation, the Department of Interior, and how we look at this. And where do we get this data from? Not just weather, because weather's unpredictable, but we can see the trends. NASA's been doing this since we've sent good men and women to space, from the extreme pollution and water impacts that we saw as we were doing the moon missions that created the Clean Water Act, created the EPA, to thinking about it this way. For 6 decades, NASA has been collecting data on Earth's land, water, air, and climate. This data is used to inform decision makers on ways to mitigate and adapt and respond to climate change. All of NASA's Earth science data is available for scientists and the public to assess in a variety of ways. This is a statement from NASA. NASA studies our whole planet as its interconnected systems more than any other planet in our universe. This came from Director of NASA Earth Science Division, Karen St. Germain. She continues, a passage of water provides an opportunity to highlight the public availability of strength, weaknesses, opportunity, and tactics, our SWOT data and other NASA Earth science data to tell meaningful stories, improve awareness, and help everyday people who have to make real decisions in their homes, businesses, and communities. We've talked about the GRACE satellites and how they have been creating a complete map of Earth gravitational field. And they do this every 30 days. Why are we talking gravity if we're talking water? Gravity determines mass. So while most of our planet's mass is land, along with the core, doesn't move much in 30 days. However, water and ice do, causing Earth's gravity to shift. By tracking these changes in GRACE, we can identify how much ice sheets and glaciers are shrinking. GRACE data is used extensively to determine mass changes of the world's land for ice sheets, ice field, ice caps, and mountain glaciers. Why? Because that's our water ecosystem. It also adds mass through our precipitation and loss from the melting of those glaciers runoff into the ocean. So as we see greater gains in land ice and mass, we see sea level rises. We've talked about this. Over 200,000 properties and 400,000 Americans by the time 2030 will be displaced due to flooding. They state over the last decade or so, losses from land ice have been implicated in causing 2/3 of the observed rise in sea level. So as we talk about the skepticism, or we speculate that we have these reservoirs in the northern western part of the country that are overfilled, and that we don't need to conserve water. We can see these impacts. We can see the melt. We can see the climate change. We can see what's shifting along with what we see in these reservoirs shrinking, which immediately tells us what's going on with the impacts of groundwater. And as you go to the Associated Press and Reuters right now, you can see West Texas communities rationing water. We can see more discussions about the Ogallala. We can see more discussions into Idaho, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah. We have big impacts, and this is another point to this. And through this data, we're starting to call the droughts that we're having right now mega droughts. This reservoir data that we just looked at for Texas and Mexico, they've collected enough data to calculate that we are short 4.6 million acre feet of water in the Amistad Reservoir is missing about 33%. So we've talked about the strategic water reserves that the White House talked about in December of last year and then again in May. And we have these scientists with NGWA right on top of this. What did they say? They said groundwater doesn't instantly replenish itself and that it can take centuries. And they are protecting groundwater. So what should we be doing with this data? We can use this data along with scientists, communities, groundwater protection, water well regulations to help embrace the science versus our tribal knowledge to help conserve groundwater. Go check out the GRACE program at NASA. There's so many cool images. There's so much to be looked at. It needs to be a bigger part of our weekly thought process as we are groundwater professionals or as we're drilling professionals intersecting these aquifers for geothermal or construction or other applications. At the end of the day, same as we harness geothermal to be able to have more reliable heating and cooling and power generations, groundwater is protected from the elements, but it's only protected if we conserve it appropriately. For this week's feature, it's a short week. It's already September 3rd that you're seeing this. And we're in crunch time, right? Labor Day's done. We're pushing before snow flies, before the end of the year. But I need you to start thinking about what conferences I should be paying attention to in September and October. So, hey, drilling industry professionals, scientists, engineers, the two conferences that I will be attending that need to be on your radar, end of September, National Drilling Association Drill Expo, and end of October, New York Geothermal, New York City in Brooklyn. So on September 25th and 26th at the Huntington Convention Center in Cleveland, Ohio, we have the National Drilling Association Drill Expo 2024. This is going to be a killer event. You're going to want to be there. On the 25th, it kicks off with a golf outing and then on to some fun at a brewery and ice cream tour. And it finishes the evening with a National Drilling Association rooftop social. Then early Thursday morning on the 26th, it kicks off with the keynote speaker, Patrick Nelson, talking about inspiring your workforce. And then it's a full day event discussing new technologies and drilling. I'm really excited to see the developing the correct JSA by Cascade. And then that evening, we'll have the President's Dinner, which will showcase the coveted safety awards, lifetime achievement. It's a great event to be at. Episode 126, the Driller Newscast will have Sam Conley, president of the National Drilling Association, on, and we'll talk more about this great event. Today, I have a special guest as well, and that's Executive Director Christine Hoffer, the New York Geo Association, which is hosting on October 21st through the 23rd, New York Geo New York City 2024, which will be held at the New York Brooklyn Bridge Marriott. It's going to be an awesome event. It starts with some site tours and being able to see some active drilling sites. And then, of course, we'll have all the great roundtables and educational sessions that you're not going to want to miss. If you have not registered, get your pencil out right now because from now to September 5th, got a couple days here, you can use a secret code to reopen up the early bird rate. And that secret code, you want to guess? That's right. Driller. All capital. Capital D, capital R, capital I, capital L, capital L, capital E, capital R. Because what? This episode is brought to you by Sesame Street. No. Go type in all capitals, Driller, get the early bird special. If you haven't already registered, I hope to see you there. We'll be at the Driller booth. Let's have some great conversations. And now let's jump into a great interview with Christine. She's at the event space during this interview, and it's super busy. The entire New York Geothermal Board of Directors has been very busy, and we're lucky that we got a chance to hijack some of Christine's time. I want you to go to the website, ny-geo.org, to register. Now let's jump into this great discussion with Christine. So this October, we have New York Geo in Brooklyn. And yes, we've already had our New York Geo event in Albany, and it was a great success with so many amazing professionals in discussions from workforce development to thermal networks to everything that we need to be looking at. And that was spring. And now we're rolling into the last 3 months of the year. And we have Brooklyn. And if you came away inspired after the April Albany event, the site tours and the schedule that's being put together, this is a must see. So I was able to snag Christine, Executive Director of the New York Geo Association, to talk with us really quick about what she's excited about and why you must be at this event. Good morning, Christine.
Hey, good morning. Good morning. I think first and foremost, for folks that are going to be listening to this podcast, you want to get your registration in the next 2 days because rates are going to increase. So register now.
Yes, yes. There's not going to be a better opportunity to be in our biggest city of the country and talking all of the epic events that are going on right now, just with the thermal networks in place, to the success of One Java, to the rest of New York is blazing the way when it comes to how we become a decarbonized, sustainable city. So, what should we expect to see at New York Geo Brooklyn?
Well, you should expect to see all the same stuff great stuff that you've seen in Albany, just sort of on steroids, maybe. So we're looking at a full conference, and on Albany, we shortened it a little bit, but we will have 9 PDH credits available, which we're very excited about. The site tours, as you mentioned, will be a new element that we will add this year, which will be on October 21st, on that Monday. Registration for them should be up by the middle of next week. We have one site we just are trying to get confirmed. But each tour will include 2 different sites. So you pick one tour and then you go to 2 different sites. And they don't include Java 1, which you mentioned already. We're working on a couple other pretty exciting destinations as well. One of the things that's holding us back on announcing them is we want to make sure that we're picking sites that do have some drilling going on, because that's a very important aspect of geothermal, as everybody knows. And so we want to be able to see that in action. And really talk about how you can drill in an urban environment like New York City. It's different than really anywhere else because there's so much other infrastructure underneath the ground. And how do you make sure that you're aware of that and ensure that everybody's safe and that you get what you need. The 500-foot rule will help with some of that, allowing, less boreholes, and so that you have them at a deeper depth. So we'll talk about that kind of stuff as well. John Chavaka, who is putting together the schedule, has some really amazing content that will be coming at everybody, and content that we haven't already talked about, and things that we do need to talk about. So one of the things that we're contemplating and really want to do is the driller apprenticeships. How do we make sure that we are ready and to go with the drilling aspect of geothermal? And an apprenticeship program is really, really important. And I know you and I have talked a lot about this, but getting at the kids at a younger age. So, in their high school, when they're thinking about going directly into the workforce and choosing drilling as a work for their future. And we need to get them in high school. So we need to talk about the schools and getting drilling to the high school so that when they come out of high school, they're ready to go right into an apprenticeship program. So it's not, I'm out of high school now. What do I do? Have to take the training. Let's get it done early. So I'm talking about that. So we make sure we're scaled up from a drilling perspective and ready to, turn the switch and go geo.
Yeah, it's very exciting. By the time this event happens and this newscast drops, I will be in Boston teaching the first 15 new to the industry students. These are not family members. These are not individuals that worked in construction and said, "Hey, I should be part of drilling." These are individuals that went, "This seems like a really great career, and I'm going to dedicate 80 hours to see if I can place myself." And to that urban drilling aspect, it's we're used to parking lots and football fields and being able to fence a big piece off. And this new venture into being able to drill in an alley or on a side street or a green space and understand that now drilling isn't about crazy production. It's about how do we become a good neighbor and steward and have good noise mitigation and everything that comes with it's like being on a stage and like we get a chance to drill some geothermal on Broadway, right? Like let's
Right.
think about it. You have folks that are going to be walking by going, "Oh, we can do this." Or
Right.
we can have folks walking by like that old Guardian article from 2014 that says, I'm drilling, they're drilling geothermal next to my house right now, and I want to blow my brains out. Like, we have the two dichotomies here.
Right.
And the only way we hit our net zero goals is to be able to do this urban drilling, thermal networks, and more importantly, like you said, um, high school students, middle school
Right.
students, college students. This is from now to 2050 is such an exciting time. And it's cool to see New York Geo having a Brooklyn event because, Albany, we get right to work and we have all these great discussions, but now we're in the hustle and bustle of the big city. And,
Right.
Brooklyn's got a ton going on, and then Manhattan, and then as you look across the island, it's if we can figure out how to execute there, we can do it anywhere in the world.
New York, New York.
So if folks are coming to see a drilling job site, and obviously we're a drilling media platform, and due to weather and drilling situations and stuff, it is like herding cats to secure that we will physically be drilling a real borehole, on the day. But, John and team planning this around are going to get it done. But do we need hard hats and boots and that stuff, or will we be isolated back? What do we need to bring?
Yeah, so we will have PPE available at the sites that we need it. Lots of people are comfortable in their own PPE, so feel free to bring it. But we will advise what sites you need it on and if you need it at all.
I am so excited. Maybe some people are going to some islands or other things for some events, but damn it, New York is where it's at. and Governor Hochul and New York Geo's board and OGs that have been pushing this, this is just a culmination of a really great place for us to be in 2024. Because let's face it, we have 5 years to hit these goals.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And we at Nigeo are very appreciative of everybody that contributes and supports what we're trying to do. And without that support, without that support, we would not be able to put on this conference. So, thank you to all of our sponsors and our exhibitors for stepping forward and supporting what we're doing.
And I think that's the last piece I want to hit on is okay, so you're in Colorado or you're in Texas or you're somewhere else in the country and you're thinking, why would I come to Brooklyn? They're going to talk about New York Geo. What I've learned in the last couple of years of being part of this event is the collaboration on the East Coast and then going west, the international collaboration. This is a think tank hub of industry professionals all working towards common goals. And again, we can do it on an island in the biggest city in the United States. We can do this anywhere.
Right, right, definitely. Yeah, so we can drill.
Drill, drill, drill. Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Brock. Thank you to all your what your team is doing to support what we're doing. Geothermal is, it is the best application for decarbonizing and electrifying the world.
Thanks, Christine. We are very excited for this conference. I can't wait to get to Brooklyn. It's going to be a great time. I want you to think right now, who's your competent person on site? Who are we entrusting the safety and security of our business and our people with? Check out NASA and the GRACE program and the proven science behind what's happening with our water. Check out thedriller.com. We have great content coming out all the time from JJ, our Washington, D.C. correspondent, to Sammy in Idaho talking about Western United States things. We are looking for more contributing writers. If you have a story, reach out to me, questions@askbrock.com. I will get you set up. We need to start thinking about the end of this year and what we want to be really focusing on in 2025. Go out, be safe, get signed up for the National Drilling Association's Drill Expo and New York Geothermal Brooklyn Conference. Hello, New York, New York. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody.